Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Game Chat with Takeover by the Bioware Baes. So this is sort of a part 2 of the one we put out previously.
Mm-hmm.
So the one we put out previously, for people who didn't see it, it was sort of not everything we know about Veilguard, but just like the main points.
Yeah.
Because if we did it everything we know, we'd be here for like 7 hours.
Yeah.
So so this one now is sort of a story so far. It's not like...
It's not like a big lore video. It's not really a media timeline. It's kind of like in the middle. It's
the main points of what you need to know. Yeah. Essentially. Without spending, again, like another 5 hours on a video.
Yeah.
So let's start.
Yeah, I'll do it in... I've put it all in like chronological order. So like, the first thing in the timeline really is a novel called The Stolen Throne. It's about the King of... Prince Marek of Ferelden. His mum is killed in the start. He ends up teaming up with an outlaw called Loghain, and they take the throne back. That's the gist of that novel. It links more into Origins, and it doesn't really have any links beyond that. That's then followed up by another novel called The Calling. So this is set a bit more into Marek's reign as king. His wife has recently died, and he's feeling a bit depressed, so he decides to go on an expedition into the Deep Roads with the Grey Wardens. As you do. That's a logical thing to do.
Keep him busy, innit?
So he travels with a warden commander called Genevieve, and Duncan and Fiona, who are two like junior wardens at this point. They get there. There's a lot of casualties, and they find an intelligent darkspawn called the Architect, who wants to basically stop the blight by killing off all the old gods, but also spreading the darkspawn tape to the entire surface to make peace between the humans and darkspawn. Obviously, Marek...
Do you want to make an omelette?
Well, Marek and Duncan are like, that's a bit of an insane idea. We should not do that. And then the other wardens are like, actually...
But what if though?
Maybe. So they fight, and obviously Marek wins, and he falls in love with Fiona, and they have a baby that gets left in Marek's care. Except for the fact that it doesn't.
There's no care.
There is no care. So that's where that book ends. The baby is Alistair, and he gets shipped off to live with Arleman, because you can't just have a bastard child running about the castle. It's not that type of medieval story, apparently. So the next thing in the timeline is a kind of 3D anime style film called Dawn of the Seeker, but it's basically about Cassandra. As a young seeker, she stumbles across a conspiracy by some of the Grand Clerics in the Chantry. They've teamed up with some blood mages who are trying to control a dragon using this little girl. And there's a fight at the end with dragons. Cassandra wins, and she becomes the hero of Orlais. That's the gist of that. It's not really important to the grand scheme of things. The next thing in the timeline is the Leliana's Song DLC for Origins. So this is like a standalone campaign. It's like 4 hours, I think. You play as Leliana a couple of years before Origins starts, and she's a bard. Her like bard master, Marjolaine, is...
Not Marjolaine.
Marjolaine. She's conspiring to plant some documents in Ferelden that will lead to war with Orlais, because Orlais wants Ferelden back from when Marek took it.
Just want it back.
Yeah. Leliana's like, well, war's bad, so let's not do that. And Marjolaine betrays her. She ends up being tortured by this dude. She breaks out and kills the dude, and then goes to live as a priestess, because the woman who broke her out was a priestess. That's the gist of that story. So then we're on to the first game now, which is Dragon Age Origins. So you start out as one of six, I think. There's Noble, Mage, City Elf, Dalish, Dwarf, Commoner, no, yeah, 6. So you have like an introductory mission, which is to do with your origin. No matter what, at the end of that origin, you end up recruited into the Grey Wardens by Duncan, who's now become the Warden Commander of Ferelden. You get to a place called Ostagar, where the king is really hyped to be fighting the Darkspawn, and his main advisor, Loghain, is not hype. whatever
Hopefully that aren't gonna end well.
whatever the opposite of hype is like, this is a stupid idea, we should not do this. So you get tasked with lighting a beacon that's going to signal for Loghain to come and fight the Darkspawn. So you get to the top of the tower with Alistair, who's also a Grey Warden now. You light the beacon, and then Loghain's like, I pretend I do not
I
see
do not
it.
see.
And he just leaves, and then the king dies, and Duncan dies, and you nearly die, but you get saved by Flemeth. She takes you back to a hut and nurses you back to health, because she's a kind, loving old lady. She then, when you wake up, she's like, you kind of need to go stop the bloke, because all the other Grey Wardens are dead, and you're the only one left, so sorry.
But
She sends
I'm only an intern.
she sends her daughter with you with no ulterior motive whatsoever, apart from the fact that she absolutely does. And you first stop off at a village called Lothering, where you can recruit Leliana. You can also recruit a Kunari called Sten. And then you leave Lothering, not a lot happens there. And you have like a choice of quests to do. You have to do all of them, but you can do them in any order. So there's one where you go to recruit the mages, and you have to choose between helping the mages who are like at danger of being possessed because of some blood mages, or you can help the Templars kill all the mages to like make sure that the problem doesn't spread. You can go to help the Dalish elves who are being attacked by werewolves, and you can either choose to help the Dalish kill the werewolves, help the werewolves kill the Dalish, or you can reveal that the Dalish keeper was a big snake and put the curse on the werewolves in the first place, and you can convince him that that was a bad idea.
And there's a lady who's a tree.
There is a lady who's a tree, and
A very pretty lady. That's
all of Origins' graphics budget into her.
They did, yeah.
She's the only person in a Bioware game before Veilguard with hair longer than this. The other stuff that you can make is to recruit the dwarves. So you get there, and basically there's a succession crisis because the king has recently died, and everyone thinks that his son is a murderer, which they only think that because he is. If you play the dwarf noble Origin, it's like your brother, and he frames you for murder, and that's why you get sent to the wardens. But obviously, if you're not playing that one, you just get sent to the deep roads and die. So like he actually did kill his brother, and then the other guy is like, well, he killed his brother, so I should be king. I was the king's best advisor. So you have to choose between them. Whoever you choose to help sends you into the deep roads to find the secret of making golems.
Not the deep roads.
Yeah. You get there and you find out that golems are just made from sacrificing people's souls, and the person who invented golems has been turned into a golem, has been trapped there the whole time, and he's like, I regret my choices. Can you help me kill myself and also destroy this machine? And it's like, yes or no, because this crazy dwarf lady wants it to make more golems. So you make a choice there. And then you can crown whichever one you want. The murderer is actually weirdly the best choice in my opinion. Because yes, he killed his brother, but he's really progressive. He wants to like make life better for poor people. He wants to stop the thing where like if dwarves go to the surface, they're exiled forever.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't get why that's a thing, but whereas the other guy like he's like Orzammar first. He like close the borders, keep them out. But like he's really nice when you play the game. That he gets that epilogue. It's like, yeah, he was really like harsh king. Closed all the borders. He ruined Orzammar's trade. It's like, okay,
no.
okay. So once you
to book what's covering
the last ally that you have to gain is Arl Eamon, who rules the town of Redcliffe. You get there and the town is under attack from like undead.
This is my favourite mission.
Yeah, so
this is my favourite part of the game.
So you find out that the reason the town's being attacked is because someone poisoned Arl Eamon, and his son, who was secretly being trained as a mage, kind of lost it and accidentally summoned a demon to help his dad. And then the demon just took advantage and started raising the undead to attack the village for shits and giggles, I guess. Had nothing better to do. So you can choose to kind of enter the Fade yourself if you're a mage, or like send one of your mage allies into the Fade to help kind of exorcise the demon from this kid. You can either do that by sacrificing his mom in a blood ritual.
Whoops.
If you help the mages earlier, you can just get the mages to do the ritual for you, and they'll send you in with lyrium. Or you can just straight up kill the kid. So that's an option. You can punch his mom in the face and stab him.
Oh, no.
But that doesn't lift Arlemon's severe case of poisoning. So his wife or guards, if the wife's dead, I guess, they send you to find this like urn of Ashes of Andraste, who's like a prophet for the Chantry. As they're rumored to be able to heal people. So you end up following this trail and you discover a village that's got a cult in it. The cult worship a dragon because they think it's Andraste. You can either side with the cult and poison her ashes because they believe that they're fake, I think, and that the dragon is the true Andraste. Or you can kill the cult and keep the ashes.
And this is where the Liliana problem comes about, isn't it?
So Liliana, if you poison them, Liliana attacks you because she's like a devout follower of this religion, and you've just poisoned like the remains of their like holy figure. So you can kill her in Origins, but then she's the main character in Inquisition. So the lore reason they gave that she comes back is that the lyrium from the mountain like entered her body and reanimated her.
I thought it was that some of the ashes got dropped on her. I thought that was all the canon.
It's like
a mix of both.
Mix, yeah.
Okay. As you believe in,
she becomes like a lyrium ghost thing. Not very well explained, but so once you've gathered all of your allies, you go to Denerim because Loghain is like calling for your head basically because he's now the regent of Ferelden and has declared himself regent. And Arlemon's like, oh, but Alistair here, I just happen to know because I raised him, is the bastard son of the old king. So I guess he should be king and not you.
Here, not you.
Yeah. So then you basically uncover that Loghain's been selling elves as slaves. And you go to all the noble. And like his main ally is a nasty man, Arhau. He killed the human noble's family, if you play that origin. Yeah. And he also took a load of hostages from other noble families and is just a bit of a dickhead.
Not a nice man, yeah.
So you defeat him, you uncover that Loghain's been selling elves into slavery, and then you take all this evidence to the Landsmeet and you're like, but he's mean. And they're all like, do you know what?
You're so right.
So true, bestie. Alistair should be king instead. You can have Loghain's daughter, Nora, crowned instead of Alistair if you don't want to, because Alistair doesn't really want to be king.
But I want to be queen.
Yeah.
So he had to be
king. Until you say to him, like, well, the other option is Nora. And he's like, okay, fine. You can marry them off to each other to, like, stabilise the realm. That's what I did, because they wouldn't marry me, because I'm in fact a man. So I was like, do you know what? As punishment for not being into men, you can marry a Nora. Stabilise the realm. And they end up being quite a successful couple.
Okay.
Which is good.
Not as successful as me though.
Well, if you tell Alistair to stop being a bit of a wimp, they make a successful couple because he actually like engages in ruling. But if you don't do that, he just kind of leaves it to her and just goes out partying.
Whoops. Okay.
I think if you marry him as the warden, then he takes an effort. Or if like he's just the king by himself, he'll make an effort as well.
Okay.
So once you've chosen whoever is king or queen, you then just have to fight the Darkspawn and fight the Archdemon. But if you kill the Archdemon, you die. Sad.
Whoever takes the last hit on the Archdemon will die.
So only if they're a Grey Warden.
Yeah.
So like if the warden kills the Archdemon, the warden dies. If Alistair makes the final blow, Alistair dies. There is an option at the Landsmeet to recruit Loghain into the Grey Wardens instead of executing him. Who would do that? Chris. He can make the final blow. But if you don't want to die, Morrigan, who had no ulterior motive this whole time, comes to your room the night before the final battle, and she's like, the real reason my mum sent you is so I could have a baby with the Grey Warden. And then that baby will absorb the Archdemon's soul. And then no one has to die. So because I was romancing Morrigan, I was like, but let's do it. And Yeah.
No, she's a homewrecker.
Kate has been salty for years.
I actually
She had to
have.
agree to Alistair to sleep with Morrigan.
I actually have. Like, it still pains me to this day. Like, and it's not even. Do you know what? I don't even really like Alistair that much. But at the time, it was so hurtful. It made me so mad. That was like the original Gale.
Yeah. So that's the end of Dragon Age Origins. If you survived Origins, you can import your character into the expansion Awakening. If not,
Great game.
it is really good.
Fantastic. One of the best DLCs for a game. It's up there with Mass Effect's Citadel DLC.
Yeah. If you didn't survive, you can create a new warden from Orlais, and you're sent by the Grey Wardens to rebuild in Ferelden. And when you get to your new castle, it's under attack by Darkspawn. And you're like, did we not deal with
this?
So you find out that there's an intelligent Darkspawn called the Architect, the same one from the Calling Book, who went ahead with his plan to try and kill the old gods, and he accidentally woke one up and caused the blight.
Can't get the stuff.
And he was like, do you know what? I'm going to make more intelligent Darkspawn. That can't go wrong. And he made an intelligent broodmother that then decided that she hated him, and now the Darkspawn are having a civil war on like your turf. So you have to. It's basically you just go to a couple of places and you find out what's happening and you put a stop to it. You can recruit some wardens into the wardens help rebuild. You can recruit a mage called Anders, who becomes important later on.
He was so good in Awakening.
I loved him in Awakening.
I absolutely stand him in Awakening. Post it. I'm not going to age.
You can recruit Nathaniel, who's Arlhau's son, who tries to kill you for killing his dad. And then you put him in jail and you're like, but your dad was a horrible person. And it's like, that's so valid. You can recruit Oberyn from the first game. He just shows up and he's like, I've joined the Wardens because I've got nothing better to do. And my wife hates me.
Oh no.
You can recruit Sigrun, who's a dwarf. She works for the Legion of the Dead, who are basically people who get exiled into the Deep Roads. And then they just fight Darkspawn until they die. So she's like, you fight Darkspawn, I fight Darkspawn, we can be friends. And then you can recruit Velana, who's a Dalish elf. Her entire vibe is where's my sister. There's not really much more to my character than that.
But like, it's not a huge expansion.
No, it's not. So. It's like 4 or 5 missions, I think. But then once you've done all that, you find the intelligent broodmother, you can kill her, and then you can decide whether to kill the architect or let him take all of his Darkspawn back into their Deep Roads to chill. With the promise that he won't attack the surface. Do we trust him? Has anything ever happened about that later on? No.
I was about to say, oh, maybe he didn't. But I guess not. Maybe he didn't.
Maybe he did just stay in his lane after all.
He retired. He went to live on a farm.
We all the other forgotten Dragon Age characters. So there's 2 more like mini expansions to Origins. There's the Golems of Ambergrak. I personally didn't like this one that much because it was more Deep Roads.
Yeah, agreed.
So you get hired by a dwarf whose brother's gone missing because they were trying to find this ancient dwarven place where used to make golems. They tried to like replicate the stuff that the guy from Origins did. And you get there and you find out it's been overrun by these giant flesh golem creatures who are horrifying to look at. And then you kill one and then cause a cave in so no one else can get there.
Yeah.
That's it. And then the last one is Witch Hunt. So basically, after the final battle, Morrigan disappears.
This one is juicy.
And then you when you're the Warden Commander, you get like a little. I was going to say email, but emails definitely don't exist in Dragon Age. A letter that's like, seen Morrigan. Like Flynn's old hut. Go investigate. So you get there, you take your dog. You and your dog go on a road trip. You get there, you find out she stole a book from this Dalish elf clan. So one of their hunters is like, we need to find her because I want my book back. So you go to the
overdue library.
Yeah. You go to the circle, and you find a mage who's like, "Oh, I'm an expert in history," and she's trying to find this mirror. And I kind of know how to activate it, so we should go and adventure together.
Team up.
You take him into surprise. the deep roads. To get like the key to activating this mirror, and then you find a. It turns out the mirror was behind where the broodmother was and awakened it. We just couldn't see it. It was out of shot.
It had like a sheet thrown over it. Couldn't see it.
And then she's like, "Well, I'm going in the mirror now because it's a magical portal to a realm beyond the fade."
Bye.
Yeah. So you can either stab her and she falls through the mirror.
That's what I did. I didn't get any repercussions, to be fair, so thug luck.
You can just let her go, or if you romanced her and had a child with her, you can be like, "I want to see my baby," and then she's like, "Okay," and then you go off and live happily ever after inside the mirror.
Until you don't.
So, that's kind of everything related to Origins. The next game in the series, I'm going to start with a web series that was made by Felicia Day. It's called Dragon Age Redemption. It was a tie-in to one of the Dragon Age 2 DLCs, set kind of like ambiguously in the early Dragon Age 2 timeline. She is a Kunari agent. She's been sent to stop a Kunari mage who wants to use one of the Dreadwolf's masks to rip a hole in the veil, which seems really... At the time, it was like, okay. But that's kind of the plot of Inquisition.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they did that. If you want to watch it, I think it's on YouTube. Dragon Age 2, the best game in the series, in my opinion, is set over a long period of time. So the prologue happens during Origins, and it's about Hawke and his their family escaping from Lothering. Skips forward about a year until after the Darkspawn have been defeated, and you're living in Kirkwall, which is a city with a lot of tensions between its mages and its Templars, because the Templars there are quite oppressive. You end up trying to fund an expedition into the Deep Roads because you need money, because you're a puffer, basically.
2 is very like strict compared to like the grand adventure of 1. 2 is very like strict back, not like in not in a bad way, but like it's a smaller story, more character driven, I would say. And to be fair, like in the grand scheme of things, what you and your companions go through, it doesn't really have that big of an effect on the story, but it is my favourite. It's the best. But it's essentially tensions rising between the Templars and the mages till it comes to a head. Yeah.
So you travel the city, you recruit some companions, whether they're friends or rivals is up to you. You get the money to go on your Deep Roads expedition. Varric's brother stabs you in the back and locks you in. So you have to find another way out. And then there's a time skip where you've become rich because you've sold everything that you found down there. There's a Kunari like camp in the city because they're looking for a stolen artifact. There's certain factions within the Chantry that don't like the Kunari, so they're trying to like stoke tensions. The Mage Templar beef is still going on. Your mom gets horrifically murdered and has her face sewn onto a dead body. That was a thing that happened.
Yeah. And you could do nothing to stop it. It was part of the plot.
Yeah.
You can't save her at all.
And then the Kunari basically just get bored of waiting. They find out that one of the companions, Isabella, stole their like holy book, and you have to fight the Arishok. Isabella can either run away and just not come back, which is what happened to me the first time I played the game.
God, really?
Because I wasn't trying to romance her, I was trying to romance Anders.
Right, okay.
Cursed on her.
That's between you and your god. Okay, alright.
So I wasn't trying to romance her, so I wasn't flirting with her, and I feel like the best way to get her approval is to flirt.
See, I don't like her. I hated her. She was like the character I hated the most, and she didn't leave me, and I was horrible to her every time.
I don't know what I did wrong in the first playthrough of that game.
She just hated your face.
It was just on sight. So then, the second time I played it, when I romanced Isabella, she stays, and you can either choose to, be there for your friend and tell the Arishok to do one, or you can just be like, do you know what? Have her.
I was so tempted, I'm not gonna lie.
If you take Fenris to the Arishok fight, he talks shit to him in Kunari and makes you 1v1 him.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. It was like, why don't you just fight him on your own? And I was like, no, he's a big boy.
I really liked that Arrow Shock. I was
Oh,
sad when I
okay.
killed the Arrow Shock.
He's a bit of a mad lad, weren't he?
Yeah. And then there's another time skip. I think it's 2 years. Tensions between the mages and the Templars have never been higher.
You're sort of
The middleman.
Hawks kind of not invested in, but like connected to this because you have a sibling.
Yeah.
And depending on what class you play, depends on which sibling.
Either like you're a mage and you're hiding from the Templars yourself,
yeah,
or like your sister is.
But your doesn't your brother become a Templar? Doesn't Carver become a Templar?
He can become a Templar.
I've never had him. I've always had.
I always send him to the Grey Wardens. No, because he likes that.
Oh, does
Bethany doesn't. Bethany's like, this is the worst life I've ever had.
Oh no.
She actually likes being in the circle, which is weird.
Yeah.
And then Carver's like, I love being a Grey Warden. It's so much fun. Thank you. So like.
But that's how like you're sort of personally connected to it.
So like you end up being like a middleman because the leader of the mages and the leader of the Templars are both like, you can do this job for me. Because you're now the champion of the city and you really like the people will listen to you and it's like, right. And then one of your companions, Anders, is possessed by a spirit of justice, but because he's so mad at the injustice that the mages receive, it gets turned into a vengeance demon. And his like Act 3 quest, he's like, can you help me gather these resources, please? For a little project I'm putting together. And you're like, yeah, okay. And he doesn't tell you what the project is, even if you ask him. And then it turns out it was to blow up the Chantry. It's like, that's the event that starts everything, has like, the consequences of that event are like the most drastic.
Yeah.
And the Templars just lose it and they're like, we're going to kill every single mage in the city because look at that.
Yeah.
Like,
Look at that.
I don't need any more justification. Like, they all need to die. And then the mages are like, well, you've accused us of doing blood magic for too long, so to combat this, we're going to start doing blood magic. And it's like, okay, great. Great logic there. And you can support one of them, but you still have to fight both of them.
Yeah, which is a bit weird, yeah.
So, like, you can be like, yeah, the Templars are in the wrong for killing all the mages, but the mages are also now turned themselves into abominations, so they kind of...
And he becomes that big monster thing, doesn't he, the guy?
So, like, he becomes like a giant flesh monster.
Yeah.
Meredith is being driven crazy by a red lyrium idol that she's turned into a sword, and that's like... She turns into like a red lyrium statue at the end. Hawk's just like...
Right.
Bye, I'm out now. I've caused enough damage. So Hawk just disappears. There's 2 DLCs for 2. Oh no, there's 3. I forget about Sebastian.
I was going to say, does Sebastian count?
So Sebastian, like, if you have him, he's like weaved in through the story. Like, he's got an Act 1, 2 and 3 quest. He's just a bit boring. I don't like Sebastian.
Yeah, he's there, but he's not like that. He's not very developed because obviously, like, they can't make him too important because you might not have him. But then that kind of makes like if you do things he doesn't agree with, he's like, well, I'm going to do this and I'll tell my dad and we'll do this. It's like, but you're not though because you DLC.
Yeah.
Like all his threats are empty because you're like, well, I could just uninstall you.
Yeah. Like,
go off against them. Like, do what you need to do.
His like whole vibe is that he's like the third son of a family that got sent to the Chantry, and then his entire family got murdered, and someone took his family's throne. So he's like, do I leave the Chantry and take back my throne, or do I just stay here and let them like
go off?
I think in all cases he does end up taking his throne back.
Because he always leaves, doesn't he?
Yeah. But it's like the choice at the end with him is like, do you support what Anders did?
Yeah.
And then if you supported what Anders did, he will in Inquisition in one of the War Table missions, he'll come in and try and invade Kirkwall.
Oh.
And you have to like side with him or Aveline at the War Table.
Oh.
I'm not being funny, but Aveline's my girl. So
yeah, I love Aveline.
Aveline's like so ride or die that I could not let her down like that. The other 2 DLCs are Legacy. So in Legacy, your sibling gets kidnapped. I think if both your siblings are dead, it might be your love interest that gets kidnapped. But someone gets kidnapped by the Carter, who are like a dwarven cartel. So you go to investigate and you're like, why are you after my family, please? And then they start spouting all this stuff about God. And you're like, oh, okay. Someone's been on the living room. So you stumble upon this like ancient prison that was built by the Grey Wardens to hold one of these really powerful sentient Darkspawn. And there's a Grey Warden there who's like half dark, because when Grey Wardens age, they like turn into ghouls, which are part Darkspawn. So there's one there who's been ghoulified to still
The
turn
ghoulification process.
yeah. And then there's another warden there who's really mean called Janica, and she's like, "We should free Corypheus and kill him." And then the other guy's like, "No." You do end up freeing him in the end, regardless of who you side with. You fight him. He reveals that he was one of the Magisters who entered the Golden City and caused the Blight in the first place. So he was originally human. And then you kill him. Apart from the fact that you don't.
The Golden City, we haven't talked about that so far. So for people that are new,
that's like in the Fade.
In the Fade, yeah.
It's like the centre of the Fade, and it's where the Chantry believes that the Maker lived until he decided to leave.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And then Magisters went there using a blood magic ritual, and when they got there, it tainted and turned black, and then that released the Darkspawn, is what the Chantry says.
Okay.
Whether we find anything different out in Veilguard, which I think we will. So yeah, you think you've killed him, and that's the end of that DLC.
I actually quite like that DLC.
Yeah.
I thought his fight was quite good as well.
Yeah. The next DLC was Mark of the Assassin, which is where Felicia Day's character Talis came into it.
Funny. It's a very funny DLC. It doesn't take itself too seriously, that DLC.
So you go to like a party by an Orlesian, like Baron or Duke or something. He wants you to hunt, is it Wyverns?
Yeah.
And then you get embroiled in this like Kunari plot. And it's entertaining.
It's funny because like it's just some of the stuff that you have to do in the party. It's just bants. Like when you're like trying to get in, and you're like, my companion, they're sick, and they're like lying on the ground or whatever.
Still like,
yeah.
I really liked that one.
It is bants.
So then, kind of connecting Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, there is a series of 3 comics called The Silent Grove, Those Who Speak, and Until We Sleep. I've classed them as one thing because there's like a continuous story. But they're basically about Alistair in a world state where he is the king. And he teams up with Varric and Isabella to find out what really happened to his dad. Because his dad was lost at sea. Apart from the fact that he wasn't. So he was abducted by the Antivan Crows.
Oh.
And imprisoned. Alistair goes to see them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Witch of the Wild broke him out."
Oh.
So you go to the swamp, and there's another Witch of the Wild there called I think she's called Yavanna, and she's got her outfit's Slayer so hard. And then she's like, "Oh, so the deep lore of your family, Alistair, is that you're like the person who founded your dynasty was like." Drank dragon blood to get magical powers and made a pact to help preserve the dragons with the Witch of the Wild's Flemeth. So, can I have some of your blood to help preserve these dragons, please? And he was like, no, and just stabs her.
Oh, that's bold for him. Yeah.
It was very odd behaviour, but they then find out that his dad is being held by a Tevinter Magister and is connected to this big orb. It's like it's keeping him related in the Fade or something.
It's like what happened to Orpheus in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, kind of. So he teams up with Sten, who's now the new Arashok.
Oh, look at him!
And Sten's like, "We hate the winter, so we're going to attack this island. Do you want in?" And Alistair's like, "Well, I need to get there to go rescue my dad." Said, "Yes, I will help you." So they get on Isabella's little pirate ship and they help Kunari attack this island. They go into the Fade and the dad's like, I don't really want to leave, to be honest. I kind of like it here. Everyone that I know is dead, so why would I want to leave? It's like, your mum's dead, my wife's dead, my son's dead. Like, got nothing left. So Alistair's like, it's kind of, you've got like a whole kingdom left and you've got me. And he's like, okay, then I guess I will leave.
Right.
And then he wakes up in the real world and his body's like all withered because it's been connected to this machine for like 10 years.
Oh, no.
And he's like, well, we need to destroy the machine. And he's like, yeah, but the machine's keeping me alive. Yeah, just do it. So then Alistair like destroys the machine.
Oh no.
Is it Alistair or Varric? One of them.
That's a sad story.
Yeah. And then there's a novel called The Masked Empire. This is about Empress Selene of Ulay.
Oh god.
So her cousin wants her throne and declared war. She was having an affair with her elven spy master. And some trouble breaks out at one of the elven alienages, and she orders it to be burned down.
Oh.
And her lover is like, excuse me. What? So they kind of get estranged. There's an elf in it called Felasan, who's working for a mysterious person, a mysterious ancient elf, who wants control of the Illuvian network.
Mm.
So Felasan helps Briala get the passcode to all the Illuvians, basically.
The Wi-Fi password.
Yeah. And then he's like, "Can I have it then to give to my master?" And she's like, "Nah,
No.
I'm keeping it."
No bad.
There's another like side story involving Selene's champion and this demon that you end up fighting in Inquisition, but that's not really that important. It's basically just to set up the civil war that happens in Inquisition.
Inquisition, yeah.
The other novel before Inquisition is called Sunder, which is about Wynne from Dragon Age 1. It's about her son.
We love Wynne.
So she's got a son who's in love with a Templar called Evangeline. And they're in the circle in Orlais, and the circle that they're in has had a lot of murders. And they find out that it's been caused by a spirit who is called Cole. So Cole's been murdering mages
Freaky boy.
because they're suffering. And he's a spirit of compassion, and he didn't understand that. He thought the easiest way to end their suffering was to kill them. So then Reese helps him understand that, like, that's not okay. But then the Lord Seeker's like, well, all the mages are troublemakers, and we're at war, so y'all need to die.
Oh no.
And then the Divine is, who's the head of the Chantry, she sends Liliana in. And she's like, I can't be seen to openly support the mages, but I do. So can you help them, please? So Liliana like gets them all out, and then they have a little meeting. But Wynne dies, which is really sad. They have a little funeral for her.
Oh no.
And then the book ends. The book ends with the Lord Seeker waking up and Cole's in his room. And it's left really ambiguous what happens, but it's not the same Lord Seeker who's in Inquisition, so I guess Cole just like... there's another book called Last Flight, which I've had for years and I've never read it. I don't know why. I've just never got around to it. And it's about... I think this one will be a little bit relevant to Veilguard.
Okay.
Because it's about a group of like Grey Warden recruits who are really into history. And they start studying the Blight before the one in Origins, which is when the Griffins went extinct.
Oh.
And they basically find like a clutch of live Griffins that were preserved using blood magic.
Oh.
And they bring the Griffins back from extinction.
Wholesome.
So that's a nice thing to happen.
So on this tragic journey we've had so far,
Yeah.
we're getting murdered.
The Griffins are back.
Griffins
Yeah.
are alive.
There's a comic called Mage Killer. I know the main characters, Marius and Tessa, are like a mage killer and his handler, I think. The gist of it is that they end up working with the Inquisition. It's just a little tie-in. There was like a browser game called The Last Court, which was on Dragon Age Keep. I think it's been taken off now. And you basically play as the leader of this small Elysian town. There's like a little mystery. It doesn't really count towards anything, but if you played it, you get a special window in Inquisition for your castle.
That's nice, I guess.
Because the town was famous for its glassmakers.
Okay.
So then Inquisition is the third game in the series. So you can pick your Inquisitor, you can pick their race and class, which kind of determines like a really vague background for you.
Yeah.
It's not nowhere near as detailed as Origins, but you're either a human noble, basically, a Dalish elf, kind of a dwarven criminal, or a Kunari mercenary. You end up going to a peace conference between the mages and the Templars that the Divine arranged, but it gets blown up severely. So it gets blown up. The Divine is dead. Pretty much all of the Mage and Templar leadership is dead. And you're basically the only survivor, and you've got like a mysterious green mark on your hand. And what happened was the explosion tore a hole in the veil between the real world and the Fade. And your mark can control the rifts that are now appearing in that veil. So you get tasked with basically...
Because you're the only survivor, everyone, well, not everyone, but a majority of people think it's your fault, you're guilty. So
you have to kind of prove your innocence at the start. And then they're like, yeah, but you're the only one who can fix it, so it's your problem now.
Yeah.
And then Cassandra, who's one of the leaders of the Seeker, well, she's one of the Seekers at this point, she proclaims the new Inquisition, because she's like, the Divine was going to do it anyway if the peace talks went badly. And this is bad, so let's do it. And you're not initially named the leader, but you like make all the decisions basically, because no one can come to an agreement in that. So you have to decide basically whether to help the mages or the Templars, because the Templars haven't been heard from, and the mages are holed up in Redcliffe. So you have to decide which one you want to ally with. You get there, they're both having problems. So whichever one you save, you can either ally with or conscript into the Inquisition, and the other one, unfortunately, doesn't end well for them. They get like absorbed into the main force of the bad guy. And then after you've done that, the elder one, who these cultists are all worshipping, who have like attacked the mages and the Templars, he comes to your base at Haven with his army and a big dragon, and his army is made up of the other faction that you didn't save, so like they get corrupted basically. And he's got a big corrupted dragon, and he like swans in, and it's Corypheus, who's absolutely not dead. Shocker. You have like you have a bit of a spat with him, and you end up causing an avalanche, like that one scene in Mulan.
Oh my god,
yeah. But your base at Haven is destroyed. So one of your allies, Solus, who's a elven apostate, takes you on a little journey through the mountains to a castle that he just so happens to know about that's abandoned, called Skyhold. And you kind of... The Inquisition's already been formed, but they name you the Inquisitor there.
Yeah.
Because they're like, look, you saved us all from the attack. You made the choice with the Mages and the Templars. You're the best person to run this place. You find out that Corypheus is planning to assassinate the Empress of Orlais. So you go to some peace talks between her and her cousin, and you can either just let the assassination happen, or you can stop it, and you can basically decide who sits on the Orlesian throne after, whether it's Celine, her cousin Gaspard, either of them with the help of Briala, her elven spy master, who's like championing for elf rights, or a weird kind of alliance between the three. The next kind of main mission is that you hear that the Grey Wardens have gone missing, and they'd be helpful. So you're like, oh, well, we should find them, just in case. So you end up teaming up with Hawk, which I thought was interesting. I don't think they handled the dialogue of Hawk pretty well.
I can't remember.
So you help Hawk, and they've got a Grey Warden ally, which is either like an NPC called Stroud,
with a big mustache.
He does have a very big mustache. Or Alistair or Logain, depending on choices that you made in Origins. You find out that the Wardens have been tricked by Corypheus into thinking that they're all going to die. And if they all die, there's no one left to fight the Blight if the Blight was to happen again. So they were like, oh, what are we going to do? I know, let's raise an army of demons.
Logic.
Yeah. So they're trying to open a big hole in the Fades to let a massive demon through called the Nightmare. Which, again, on paper, seems like a fantastic idea. So you get there with your army and you fight the Grey Wardens. A lot of them are like, this is a stupid idea. So you can like talk them down. And it's because a Tevinter Magister has been like manipulating them. So you get there, you fight, you end up trapped in the Fade. You have to fight this big, nasty demon who's like disgusting to look at.
Nasty.
He's gross. And then you have to leave someone behind in the Fade, and you can either leave Hawk or whichever Warden is with you.
Who would leave their Hawk behind?
Chris.
We were all like, no way, never leave Hawk. Hawk's the best. And Chris was like, yeah, I left them. Because they're a main character, aren't they? And they'll survive. And I get his logic.
Yeah.
But I could not take that chance.
Yeah, you get out of the Fade, and Morrigan, who was an advisor to the Empress, has come to live at Skyhold, and she's like...
Come to stick an oath in.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
She's like, so Corypheus is probably after an Alluvian, because then he can travel to the Fade. And you're like, that would have been good information.
Right.
Hours ago.
Before I went into the hinterlands and spent
like,
70 hours getting wolf pelt.
Yeah, she's like, I've been looking for one, and there's one in this ancient temple to Mythal. It's in the middle of the forest in Orlais. We're going to have to trek there, but like we should get there on time, it's fine. So you go with all your army.
Convenient.
Find this temple. You can either respect the traditions of the temple and do the rituals, and you find some ancient elves who've like been in stasis, essentially. And if you do the rituals, they will ally with you, and if you don't, they will fight you. And you get to the end of the temple, and there's a Well of Sorrows, which is basically like Elven God Wikipedia. It's like a font of all of Mythal's knowledge, and she's like the mother goddess of the Elven pantheon. And she was killed by the other gods. So to protect the well, either you or Morrigan have to drink it, and then you gain the knowledge from the well of how to defeat Corypheus. So I let Morrigan drink from the well.
Because I'm so petty and I was still mad about what she did to me 3 games ago. I was like, absolutely not, I'm going to drink from the well.
And I was like... Because
he was on chat with me and he literally listened to me go on for about 20 minutes of the game, paused like, I don't know what choice to make, I don't know what choice to make. Said nothing, and as soon as like, I'm drinking, all I heard was like, oh.
So you get back from the forest, and I don't know what happens if you don't have the kid with Morrigan, I can't remember, but if you've got the kid goes missing, and she's like, somebody help me find my son, because I'm having a panic attack. And you find a big mirror, Alluvian thing, in Skyhold. And it turns out the kid...
one there all along.
Yeah.
Who would have known?
The kid's gone into the Alluvian, and then Flemeth's there, like, siphoning all the power out of him. And Morrigan's like, leave my son alone now. Get back. And she's like, God, I'm helping him. Calm down. And she's like, yeah, but you're going to steal my body. And she's like, not if you don't want me to. Just chill. You're never in any danger from me. I just wanted to be a good mother. Morrigan's like, right. And she's like, oh, and also I'm the Elven goddess Mythal. So she possessed me like 600 years ago. We've been chilling. We've been roommates ever since. So that's the thing that happened. So then Morrigan tries to like step to Flemeth a bit, and she's like, because she drank from the well in mine, Flemeth was like, I can control you though, look. No. Like, literally like, just freezes her. It's just like, you can't do anything to me because you drank my well.
Oh,
so,
no.
Good for you. I think if you drank from the well, like, she might make you stop her. Like, try and stop her.
I
Can't remember. I know that if Morrigan... Oh, wait, no. If Morrigan doesn't have the baby, you have to go to an altar. Yeah, there's like an altar in the forest that you have to go to. And then she gains the power to shapeshift if you fight Mythal's champion dragon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need no, like, Semif wouldn't have to tell me twice to take Morrigan out. I would have done it for free. I would take no persuasion at all. I would be like, yeah, come on, let's fight.
So you get back from doing that, and Corypheus has showed up on your doorstep, and he's like, 1v1 me, bro, right now.
Literally, the boss
in
of
his
the
little
entire game.
stripy sock.
Wicked witch
Yeah.
of the West.
So he waits for you basically at the ruins of the temple where he blew up the divine and everyone, and you just fight him and you kind of trap him in the Fade, which is what he wanted.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Don't know why that was a bad thing. I think it's because you like forcefully did it and probably messed him up. But,
No.
so the game ends and Solus comes up to this orb that Corypheus used to blow a hole in the veil. And he's like, I trusted you in my orb. And
You're plundering my orbs!
And then, so you're like, oh, something shady about Solus.
Mm.
And then there's a post-credit scene where he meets up with Flemeth. And she's like, "Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen you, Dreadwolf." And it's like, shock horror, is the elven god of lies, deceit, and rebellion.
Even though all throughout the game you've been seeing murals to the Dreadwolf.
And he's got a big wolf jaw around,
yeah,
isn't
and he talks about the Dreadwolf all the time.
it? That's all.
Oh no.
And then he like turns Flemeth to stone. But
no, from Baldur's Gate below.
she like puts something into an illusion before that may or may not be the essence of her godhood that she's sending to Morrigan. If they go off the old drafts, I don't know, because that's what it was originally meant to be.
And she's wearing her crown in.
That is true. So then, in terms of DLC for Inquisition, there was the Jaws of Hakon DLC where you help a Scottish, he's not Scottish, but that's what his accent is, professor. They've gone to study these barbarians called Avar, and they're trying to find out what happened to the leader of the ancient Inquisition. So you get there, you find out that some of the Avar are trying to set free their god of winter and destruction. They've like bound his spirit into a dragon. And you're like, no, I'm not having that. So you just fight them.
My watch.
You find out that the old Inquisitor froze himself in time to stop the dragon from getting out. So when like the spell lifts, he like turns into dust essentially. And then you have the choice to tell people, because the Chantry went around telling everyone it was a human and like a famous warrior, that it was actually a Dalish elf mage, which obviously they don't like elves and they don't like mages. So you can be a little bit of a shit stirrer with the Chantry and be like, what actually? Then there's the Descent DLC, which is basically you just go into deep roads.
Again, they're obsessed with the deep roads.
You clear a bit of it out, and then it gets a bit weird down there. There's some like weird dwarves who have like machine guns. They kill one of the other dwarves that you're with, and it's really sad. And then everything, there's like lakes and plants down there, and you're like, this is weird for the deep road. Like, what's going on here? And then you find out that you're actually inside a giant titan, and there's titans under the ground. That the dwarves come from the titans, and there was a lot of dwarf lore in that DLC. There was left quite
lore, if you will.
It was very deep lore. It was kind of left vague at the end. So the other dwarf who comes with you, she gets like struck by this magical blast, and then she gets like semi-magical powers. It's not very well explained. She kind of just goes missing. So I'm wondering if that'll tie into Harding's
story, yeah.
And then the last DLC is Tresspasser. It's set 2 years after Inquisition.
And it shouldn't have been a DLC.
It should have been
at the end of the game.
So basically, you get summoned to a council because the Inquisition's just been chilling for 2 years because there's been nothing else to do.
Much well-deserved vacating.
And they're like, why do you still have a huge army, please? And why are you on our land still, if you've not got a job? So Ferelden sends a representative who's like, you should disband. And then Orlais is like, you should join the Orlesian military. And then the Divine, who you don't choose the Divine in Inquisition, but your choices influence who becomes the Divine. It's either Cassandra, Leliana, or Vivian. They call this council to try and decide what to do with you, basically. You get there, you uncover a Kunari plot involving...
Again, another Kunari plot.
I know. Involving the magic mirrors. They want to use the magic mirrors to basically... Because they can go anywhere with them. They want to put explosives where all the heads of state live and just take everyone out in one swoop and then come in. Which, to be fair, it's a pretty good plan.
It is a good plan.
Like, if it weren't for them meddling kids. Except someone's got something to say about that, and it's Solus. Because Solus doesn't like the Kunari. I can't remember why, but I know that he's got beef with them. I think it's just he doesn't agree with their like teachings.
Maybe.
Because he finds them quite restrictive. But you end up kind of finding out more about Solus being the Dreadwolf while you're on the track of the Kunari. You end up kind of being on the track of Solus too. And then you find him at the end and he turns the main Kunari antagonist to stone. Again, he's using that flesh to stone. And you have like a bit of a conversation. The anchor, the mark thing in your arm that you use to control the rifts, has kind of spread up your arm and it's kind of slowly killing you. So he's like, I should probably just take that. So he takes your whole arm. very chill.
Shanks treatment.
He's like, I kind of need to destroy the veil, pierce the veil. But because the elves used to be really good, and we used to have loads of like magic, and the world was flourishing, and everything was nice. And then I rebelled against the gods because they were horrible, horrible, horrible people. And I've made the veil, and it kind of accidentally ruined everyone's life because the elves are all dying now, and we don't have magic, and everyone hates us. So if I destroy the veil, that'll fix all that. And you're like, Solus, dear, that is a terrible plan. And he's like, it's the only plan I've got, though. So he just goes into his little magic mirror and just leaves you there. And that's the end of Inquisition. And then there's been a few things that have come out since to bridge the gap between Inquisition and Veilguard. So Knight Errant and Deception. Knight Errant focuses on a squire called Vea and the knight that she serves, who I think is called Aaron. I think it's got something to do with the Red Lyrium idol. Deception is like a continuation of that story, but it introduces some more characters. Like there's, I think, like a con artist.
Oh.
And there's a lady with a dog. Blue Wraith and Dark Fortress are about Fenris. So he meets up with the characters from Knight Errant and Deception, and he's now a slaver hunter.
Okay. It wouldn't be in my game because
dead.
again, Romance Doom was like, yeah, we're going to side with the mages because it's the right thing to do, and he was like, absolutely not, and then left. And then when I was making my way through like the final battle, he brought some Templars to kill me, so I had no choice but to put him down. So he would not get this redemption. Not get this redemption with me.
So I think the gist of that is they find another elf called Shiralas, who's been taken by a Magister and turned into like a red version of what Fenris is.
Oh.
And then they fight, and there's a fight with like Daenerys' son. Then there's Absolution, which is like an animated series on Netflix. Yeah. It's about a heist that goes wrong.
We have a good heist.
There's like a blood mage in it. One of the women who's in charge of this heist, it turns out, is actually working for the Red Templars.
Oh.
To steal this like magic circlet, and she arranged like the whole thing to go wrong so she could take it for herself. So like it's then revealed that the Red Templars are being led by someone called the Crimson Knight, and then in the post-credit scene, that is revealed to be Meredith inside a big Red Lyrium.
When you were talking about the Red Lyrium in the first one, I was literally thinking, like, did I make it up, or did she come back? Like, I thought we. It's
not been explained at all how she's come back yet.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's getting a season 2 or if any of it will be relevant, but it was entertaining. Tonight's.
Yeah.
Outside of being a Dragon Age fan, that's one of the best fantasy books I've ever read.
Okay.
It's like an anthology series, so each series is by a different author, and it's about completely different events and stories. But the point of the book is to bridge the 10-year gap between Inquisition and Veilguard in terms of like world building. It does introduce a lot of the concepts and characters that we're going to see in Veilguard, like Lucanus is in it. He's got his own story.
That's the only one I listened to it at work because you were like, he's in this story. That's the only one I listened to.
But having read all of the tales in that book, it was so grim. There's like weird eldritch horrors. There's like just bad things happening all the time. It's a really good book. I'm excited to see if any of the other characters that I don't know about are going to appear.
Okay.
Nev's story in it's quite good as well. It's like about her investigating Venatori cultists.
Oh, I do like her. I'm very interested in
There's
that
a story
character.
about Dorian in there.
Oh.
There's one where Solus wears a wig. I remember that much. It's about people like, what's her name? It's like the agent who's in charge of the keeping Crestwood in Inquisition. She's like called a meeting of like all of her spies to see what they found out about Solus, and there's like Orlesian there with like really curly blonde hair, and it's him.
Oh my god! What the hell, bro? Stack them, all of them needs firing. To replace the whole department.
So yeah, I if there's characters you're interested in Veilguard, check to see if they're into Tevinter Knights and read. Even if you just read their story, it's worth a read. Vows Vengance is like it's called a podcast, but I would call it an audio drama.
Yeah.
I I've tried my best to watch it, but I'm severely ADHD and I cannot focus on an audio drama.
I have listened to them while I was at work. I've listened to all of them. It finished yesterday. I think it suffers from the fact that obviously it's essentially an audiobook, because some of the dialogue's really clunky and some people say things and it just doesn't sound right, but obviously it's because we can't visually see what is happening. So people will be like, put that knife down, put that knife you have in your hand down, and all this stuff. And it's like, I get like why it has to be that way, because obviously they need to tell us what's happening. It was interesting to see the main companions, but some of them like so for Lucanus is the one I was the most hyped for, because I'm a thought, and I feel like he was barely in his
episode is like the only one where I can kind of remember what happened.
It had its merits, and it was interesting to get a little bit of a feel for the companions before we actually see them. But I think if they were gonna do,
it would have been. I think it would have worked better for me personally as like an animated short.
I think if they were gonna do anything, if they were gonna do a podcast, when they said podcast, I thought it was like every week it would be like the writers, the actor, and they would talk and they would tell us about the character. In terms of like the audio drama, I think I'm assuming we're gonna get more information in the game, but for all the little origins of Rook, they could have just done one for each of them. I know obviously like Rook's gonna sound different for everyone and stuff, but even if it was like narrated by somebody else, I don't know. I enjoyed some of them. Overall, I don't. It wasn't really like my vibe.
Yeah, same.
So I get it. Like it's a good like to ramp up, but I don't know. Like I said, if it was done in a different format or a different media, maybe it would have been a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, that is everything leading up to the Veilguard. Vows Vengeance pretty much
literally ends exactly where the game appears to start.
Yeah. So in 13 days, we'll know what happens next.
Right, guys. So that was
This will stop tour.
So that's our attempt at getting you ready.
I think if you want to like read things that will be relevant to Veilguard, I would say the best things to read would be probably the Tresspasser DLC if you've not played it. Maybe Last Flight, but I don't think it'll be that relevant. You just need to know that Griffins are back. Tevinter Knights. Literally Tevinter Knights and Vows Vengeance. So is it?
Yeah. Right, thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.